Good morning, my friends. Take a deep breath, would you? Let it go. Another deep breath in. Let it go. One more full deep breath. Breathe in. And let it go. So our theme's all about love. This month our theme is Love Out Loud. And this is in our greater years theme of living out loud. And, loving out loud is not a little thing. We might find ourselves saying things like, I love pizza. I love chocolate. I love myself. That one's a good one. We throw this word around a lot in our world and in our lives as if it's kind of meaningless. And yet, love is the strongest force in the universe. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, we agree with this. Okay, this is good. We can move on from here then. Love is the strongest force in the universe, and when we truly love something, we will give ourselves to it wholly and completely. Susan? Can you hear me? I'm going to use the other mic. Let's try again. When you love something, you'll give yourself to it wholly and completely. Before I came to religious science, Science of Mind, Centers for Spiritual Living, and this organization and teaching that has 17 different names, I was involved in the Hare Krishna community in my early 20s. And I remember being in a service, and the teacher who was there was speaking. And, in Krishna consciousness, Krishna is, much like we speak of God in this philosophy, Krishna is consciousness. Krishna is the isness. Krishna is the thing that's looking out of everyone's eyes, breathing with us in every moment. And so someone asked this question to the teacher, if Krishna is all that there is, why do we worship Krishna? If I'm not separate from it, why do I worship this thing outside of myself? And the teacher said, have you ever seen a couple who's been in love for many, many, many years, and how they tend to act alike? They tend to have similar mannerisms. They tend to sort of, be like each other in a lot of ways. And he says it's because when we truly give ourselves to love with another being, we merge with them. We become like them. We absorb their qualities. We share in their essence. And so when we engage in love, there's a sharing of essence, right? And we have this teaching that tells us God, consciousness, love is just the nature of existence. Well, it's really kind of difficult to fall in love with an abstract thing. It's much easier to engage in that activity of love when it's wearing someone's face, right? And so that's the power of community, of community practice of loving out loud, is the opportunity to love the version of God that's standing in front of you. Whether that be someone who's easy to love, or maybe someone who's difficult to love, right? And how we show up in the face of love, to the face of love, is the very practice. And I've had a little bit of an opportunity this week to look back at myself about what does living in love, loving out loud, really look like in this bigger world that we're living in right now. Because as many of us know, there is a lot of energy in the world that right now that feels a whole lot not like love. There's a lot of people who are really motivated by something that we might even call hate, right? And that energy is out there. It's alive in our world. We see it. We feel it. It's coming at us. And I've been in a process this week because, as some of you may or may not know, In our local community, there is a national hate group who's stepped into our community who's seeking to make some influence in one of the local school boards. And I know. And there's a lot of energy going on, and I've been tied into a number of conversations of people around town who are feeling this hatred coming at our community, seeking to seed itself, root itself here, and saying, what do we do? Right? And love is this thing that wants to protect. It's something that wants to stand up. It's something that wants to run in when we see that there is danger for the person or the thing or whoever it is that we love. We want to care for them, right? And so there's been a lot of energy around town in a number of circles that I'm involved in with these big conversations of how do we rush in and meet this hate and stop it. The problem is, when these moments come at us, oftentimes our first response, not our first response, the first thing that happens is we react. And if we react to hate as something we have to run in and put out like a building that's on fire, we're going to run into it with the same energy that's coming at us. And there's been a lot of people coming to me in the last week saying, Elisha, what can CSL do? What can we as a community do to step up for the things that we believe in, for the people in our community that we love, that we want to know that they feel supported by us? And in this conversation, it's been specifically about our LGBTQIA+ community, and specifically how do we support the trans community in our local community here? Because this is what this issue's been about and these folks who are in town right now. And I reached out to a mentor of mine, someone who's very deeply involved in the social justice movement within Centers for Spiritual Living, to seek some guidance. And I was saying, I feel this need. Our theme is Love Out Loud this month. And then here's this opportunity where there's this little wave of hate coming at us, and say, okay, how do I love out loud in the face of this thing? And my teacher said, the first thing he said was, check yourself. What's your motivation? Are you rushing in as a reaction to something that's showing up in front of you? Or are you allowing this to be a wake-up call and an invitation to start living from love in a bigger way? Because if I just run into that place where I see the hate right now, I'm not looking for the long run. I'm not looking for how do I be love in my life. I'm looking at how do I counter the hate. And he said, we have to be a people who fall so deeply in love with inclusion, who fall so deeply in love with looking for the spiritual magnificence in the other, however that presents in that being. Let us be people who are so deeply in love with social and conscious evolution that we make that the activity of our daily lives, so that when the thing shows up in the world, we're not suddenly reacting like, what do I do? Because we're already doing it. Yes. Right? Yes. And so I've been swirling in a number of conversations this week about what does it look like for us as a spiritual community to really begin to love out loud in a way that we truly make an impact in the world, creating a wave of change, creating a wave of love, creating a wave of purpose that's not just about putting out fires, but that's about lighting a fire of change that is able to rapidly shift and change the culture around us, right? And loving out loud may not be rushing to this particular meeting and protesting. Loving out loud might be learning to respect when someone changes their name or pronouns and making the effort to show your love by honoring that. Yes, yes. Because that's a shift in the culture of yourself that will shift and change and transform how you walk in the world and how people feel seen by you much more powerfully than running to a meeting and telling the haters not to hate. Right. Does that make sense? Yes. Right? And so let us all begin to think, how can I show up in the world in a way that is loving out loud so wholly and completely that I am one who is a safe place, that I am one who is an invitation, that I am one who invites the questions. You know, I'm someone who stands in front of you regularly and tells you all my preferred pronouns are they and them.
You're right.
Do you know how many people have come up to me and asked me, what does that mean for you? How can I learn to understand this? I'd say about 2 or 3. And how often people here don't make that code switch when the invitation is right in front of you. It's a simple act of love. And the people in the world who need to be supported are listening. Are you making that change? Are you flipping the script? Does love say, I'm not comfortable with that, that's not how I've learned to use English? Or does love say, help me understand? And look at that, how it shows up all over in different areas of the world. We're being invited to love out loud, and that's going to invite us, that's going to require us to flip the script a little bit, to learn how to do things differently, to ask deeper questions. You know, we've invited folks in this community on stage to introduce their pronouns and their ancestors. We read our inclusion statement every week. We do this land acknowledgement. All of these are seeking to be expressions of love that tell folks when they walk into this building that this is a safe place. We may not have figured it out. We might be tripping all over ourselves. We might be using some of these words wrong. We might say stupid things, but we're trying.
Yes, yes.
And so we make these statements to help us build a culture in mind of how we want to be and who we want to stand with and for and what that truly looks like. The change the world needs from us is a loving culture that we have to build. And it's not going to be in reaction to the things that are happening wrong. It's going to be about each one of us tapping into that which we are truly, deeply in love with, willing to stand for, and then bring that into our daily activity of our lives and our choices and the very words we choose. Because that will make a difference in the long run. And we have to realize that there's always going to be in front of us these little moments of opportunities where we go, oh no, that thing is bad, we have to stop it. And in that moment, we have to stop ourselves and take a moment. I have a friend years ago that did disaster relief training. You've probably heard me say this a million times before. But one of the first lessons that they learned was when you run into an emergency situation, don't just do something, stand there. Take a moment. Check yourself. Breathe. Assess the situation. Look for the person who's hurting the most, and then take action. But don't just run in to the first thing that you see, because you might miss something really important. And so, loving out loud is an activity. It's something that we have to choose to do every single day. And love is going to show up to you wearing 1,000 different faces. And every one of those faces is an opportunity to practice. Some really easy. Some not so easy. Some keep practicing. The more we practice, the more we reveal it. And we have to be so in love with the change that we want to see that we become it.
Yes.
We have to be so in love with the change that we want to see that we become it. So that we don't feel like we have to keep running out fighting the opposite of that, because we are it. And when each one of us makes that shift within our own mind, within our own lives, within the relationships around us, we start to build a culture of change. And the change that's in front of us, that's required, that's calling us, it's a long road. And we have to remember that the work is for the long run. The work is for the future generations. Some of us may not live to see the changes that we want to see happen in the world, but we can seed them, we can root them, and we can water them, and know that those little seeds may become a forest of change that affects the generations who come after us.
Hear, hear.
And we have to plant those seeds in our own minds. We have to plant them in this community. We have to plant them in our political consciousness. We have to plant them in our environmental consciousness. We have to fall in love with the planet. We have to fall in love with diversity. We have to fall in love with inclusion. We have to fall in love with the spiritual magnificence that's gleaming in the eyes of each and every person. We have to fall in love with possibility. We have to fall in love with love so much that we become it. So that's the invitation today. Breathe that in. Maybe even place a hand on your heart. And if it's comfortable, close your eyes and take another deep breath. And if your hand's on your chest, take another deep breath in, and for a moment, feel that heartbeat. Because what I know is that God is love. That love is the very nature of existence. I think of love like gravity, as a force in the universe that draws all things towards itself, that pulls bodies together, that pulls planets together, that holds solar systems, and all of the powers of the universe are called together by this energy we call love. It's that very energy that drew each one of us into this building today. And it is that very source, that force, that power that I call love that is beating each one of our hearts. And then sending a field of magnetic electricity 20 feet out in each direction from each one of our hearts. The magnetic field of your heart spreads out beyond your physical body. So let us just breathe today into that awareness that we are being breathed by something greater than we are, that we are being lived by something greater than we are, that our hearts are being beat by love itself. Let that love circulate not only through our bodies, but into our minds. Let it move from there into our choices, into our lives. Let the love that we are cultivating be a shift, be a change, be that which the world is calling for, screaming for, begging for. The circumstances of the world are rising up for each one of us as an invitation to figure out what we're truly in love with. Everything that is coming at us is an invitation to ask ourselves deeply, what would love do now? What would love do now? In the face of this, how would love show up? In the face of that, how would love show up? For this person, for that person, how would love show up? Let's learn to lead with love, ask from love, look through love, and act through love, as if love is a force that is greater than anything in the world, so fierce and so powerful that it can create and change anything when we truly act from that place. And anywhere in the world where there is a seeming absence of love, let each one of us be an invitation to bring love to that place. Let's start with ourselves, with each other, and then spread this love everywhere we go. And stand for it, choose for it, live for it. And so I let it be, and so it is.